Looks like Big U is still up to his ways, even while in federal custody. In court paperwork filed just this week, federal prosecutors say the OG is trying to get his celebrity pals to help him out. Plus, he's making a big ask, a huge ask. He wants the White House to intervene on his case. I'm Elizabeth Millner with Law&Crime. Big U has remained in federal custody since he turned himself in earlier this month. Now, the feds claim he's running a mafia-like organization, but in a nearly 30-page brief written to the court, federal prosecutors outline everything he's been up to since he's been in lockup. And they were listening to him allegedly come up with this whole elaborate plan. For years, Eugene Henley, better known as Big U, likely thought he was untouchable until a sprawling indictment came down accusing him of being the head of a racketeering enterprise. Plus, he's accused of kidnapping and murder and scamming some very high-profile celebs.
I just need y'all prayers. I need y'all to... I don't even know what to say.
Big U does claim he's innocent and that this is a whole big misunderstanding. Plus, he pleaded not guilty to his charges. And like most defendants, he wanted to be given bail so he can fight his case from the outside. But in a 26-page document, which even had a table of contents, federal prosecutors outlined every single reason why a judge shouldn't grant him bail. Literally on page 1, federal prosecutors come out swinging. They wrote, quote, "For decades, defendant Eugene Henley Jr., also known as Big U, has put on a public facade masquerading as a reformed gang member and legitimate businessman whose only ambition was to better his community." But defendant wasn't helping Crenshaw. He was helping himself. In the shadows, defendant was secretly operating as kingpin of a criminal enterprise that has ruled Los Angeles through violence, fear, and intimidation. Now he seeks pretrial release under the guise of his reformed persona, even though his criminal activities have included murder, extortion, robbery, wire fraud, bank fraud, and human trafficking. They're asking the court to keep him in custody for the safety of the community. In the filing, they wrote, quote, "Even in his short time in custody, he is up to his old tricks, once again trying to use some of those same celebrities for his personal gain. He has even suggested that he can manipulate the President of the United States into intervening in the case and dropping the charges, even as he simultaneously derisively refers to the president as the Orange Man while in custody." We're normally not political here, but don't think calling Donald Trump the Orange Man will help him out here. So initially, when the indictment came down, authorities believed Big U was on the run. According to this document, when he received notice of his arrest, Big U allegedly destroyed evidence and attempted to paint a false narrative of his criminality. Maybe federal prosecutors are talking about those videos he posted to Instagram declaring he did nothing wrong.
I'm looking at all these charges on the news. I'm headed back to LA. And then I'm looking at the people they arrested. How you gonna go arrest people that I don't even talk to? That's a built-in liar right there. You know what I mean? So, is that how they gonna work the case? Everybody know I don't can him. Everybody know I'm big. So if you want to arrest certain dudes, and put them next to me, them is the dudes you gonna have to call themselves turning against me. Well, ain't no turning against me. I ain't going for that. You might as well go get 600 and whack. These dudes been saying I did all year. So what they doing is they go on the internet and these dudes say that I did shit on the internet. Then when you say I did on the internet, they go investigate it. Now you raiding my houses, raiding my shops, raiding all this stuff. And talking about I'm committing crimes and covering up with developing option. What crimes am I committing to cover up with developing option? You know what I'm saying? I ain't committed no crimes and covered nothing up with developing option. It's crazy. But this how they get you. They get one or two people to say something. Ain't gonna be no real evidence. Ain't gonna be no real nothing. It's gonna be a repeated thug. It's gonna be a bunch of people in jail for a bunch of different crimes that don't have nothing to do with me. They finna lump all of us up and say it's all around the 60s. Watch this. We just seen it with Thug. I'm finna experience the same thing out here. I knew it was coming. Now they on there saying all this stuff to assassinate my character. All right, man, just pray for me. And again, they can do any one of us. It ain't nobody safe with these dudes. If these dudes feel they want you, how they going around talking about somebody's gonna raid my house before my house get raided? How they there with the police? And y'all sitting there following them. Everybody that's a part of them shows, and 100 shows, and all them shows, and y'all need to, everybody who following them, promoting them, anything. Y'all wrong. Y'all ain't black. And y'all show ain't for our people. They can put charges against anybody.
I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring us. If you don't know Odoo, they're an incredible all-in-one business management software that provides you with a range of applications. They have really cool features like their projects app. Look, managing projects can be tough, but with Odoo's project app, it really doesn't have to be. Need a clear timeline? The Gantt view maps out your tasks and helps you stay on track. Prefer a more flexible approach? The Kanban view lets you move tasks easily from to-do to done. Or if you like structure, the list view gives you all the details at a glance. Plus, Odoo's comprehensive dashboard keeps you updated on task status, activities, and remaining time, so you're always in control. And with powerful reporting tools, you can track your project's budget, milestones, and profitability in real time. So right now, you can get a free 15-day trial of Odoo's all-in-one business solution and see how it can make your life easier. Scan the QR code on your screen or check it out at ourlinkodoo.com/LCNewsProject. Federal prosecutors continue to write, quote, any supporters defendant may offer as sureties will not protect the community. They did not save R.W., whom defendant murdered and abandoned in the desert. They did not save defendant's countless extortion and embezzlement victims who defendant terrorized or tricked for years. They did not stop defendant from leaving Los Angeles in the midnight hours before his arrest or hurling thinly veiled threats in the lead-up to his surrender. Then prosecutors lay into the allegations stacked against him, like his gang ties. They even point to his interviews he's done. Like in one interview, when he talked about his gang tattoos, he said, "It ain't on you, it's in you." In other interviews, Big U talked about his drug dealing days, taking a percentage of money from illegal activity in the neighborhood, leading the body snatchers kidnapping crew, and then his previous time in prison where he claimed to pay off guards and taking a percentage of drug sales while in the clank. Then prosecutors lay out information in the indictment, like using his stature to help out the Rollin' 60s Crips or portraying himself in the media as a former gangbanger turned community activist with his nonprofit developing options. In the filing, prosecutors wrote, quote, defendant portrayed himself as the neighborhood savior in drawing in donations and government resources intended to benefit at-risk youth, but which he oftentimes used to fund his lifestyle instead. Then prosecutors lay out the murder allegations. The government claims Big U murdered an up-and-coming rapper signed to his label who is also close friends with Big U's son. The victim is only named as R.W. in court paperwork, but we've learned the victim to be Rayshawn Williams, who was previously teammates with Big U's son Dayon, who plays now for the LA Chargers. The government claims the murder went down after Rayshawn and Big U left the studio, then returned to an Airbnb in Vegas. Rayshawn was seen leaving the Airbnb with his belongings, and that was the last time he was seen alive. He was found the next morning with gunshot wounds to his head. Big U claimed he was at the gym, but really, who goes to the gym at 2 a.m? But federal prosecutors say Big U's cell phone activity, plus his own words they got from him on a wiretap, prove he's guilty. Then the government lays out the robbery and extortion claims. They allege Big U and his co-defendant, Sylvester Robinson, extorted a victim and threatened violence against this victim if he didn't pay their fees. When victim 1, as he's called in the court filing, began to ignore Big U's calls demanding money, Big U allegedly sent armed robbers to rob victim 1's dispensary and then demanded $10,000 to prevent future robberies. By the way, the feds are outlining a lot of details and admissions from Big U himself because they had wiretaps on his phone. So how does the saying go? It came from the horse's mouth. Big U allegedly extorted another victim for $30,000. When victim 2 requested to pay $20,000 instead, Big U allegedly responded, "I'll tear that B up. It won't be a club there no more." Big U allegedly sent his 2 co-defendants, Sylvester Robinson and Mark Martin, as well as members of the Rollin' 60s, to confront victim 2 at his business and extort $30,000. Federal prosecutors say the extortion wasn't just to victim 1 and 2, there were more victims. The government alleges Big U used his power to direct others to commit violence. Like on November 23rd of 2022, they intercepted a call where Big U allegedly said he could pay 3 people $50 each to beat up someone at a store for refusing to give Big U a discount. Prosecutors claim since 1992, Big U wasn't even allowed to possess guns because of his felony convictions, which were for second-degree robbery with a firearm, conspiracy, and drug trafficking. And even after his release from prison, he still continued owning guns. The government points to the specific example of Rayshawn's murder, plus other examples of directing others to use guns, like when they allegedly robbed victim one's dispensary. According to the filing, Big U isn't only a physical danger, but a financial danger too. The government alleges hundreds of thousands of dollars from charitable donors and government programs flowed right into the Developing Options bank account, which was where it was supposed to go. But immediately after, prosecutors claimed the money was put into Big U's personal account, and Big U got richer and richer. He drove a Mercedes, he had multiple homes, he took lavish trips, and spent lavishly too, like on a $30,000 necklace. Now, mind you, that money was supposed to go to at-risk kids. According to the filing, it seems Big U pulled the wool over everyone's heads, like politicians, celebrities, and other community activists too. The government says Big U should remain detained because not only is he a danger to the community, but there's a huge risk he won't come back to court, especially since he's facing a maximum sentence of 600 years. Yes, 600 years in prison. Again, on the max end, but that's still a lot of time. The government points to the recordings they have of Big U, his conduct and threats throughout the years-long investigation, and his risk of non-appearance as just a few reasons he should remain in federal detention pending trial. And the judge agreed. So Big U is staying where he is, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. We have lots to unpack here, so I'm joined now by Detective Eric Barnes. Detective Barnes, thank you so much for being here today. You know, Big U has been in federal custody now for weeks, and now we know that the judge denied him bail. But reading the brief outlined by federal prosecutors, it was very detailed, especially as prosecutors laid out everything he's been up to since he's been taken into custody. What's your reaction to the federal prosecution just kind of alleging that Big U is still up to his old ways?
I thought that was very interesting. Typically the behavior that people exhibit outside, that the feds weren't surprised that once he got inside prison that it would continue. I think that, typically outside on the streets, an individual has some protection, but inside there's not very much protection. And so federal authorities have access to a whole lot of resources inside their facilities.
Yeah, and making calls on open lines, knowing the federal government is listening to everything you're doing, probably not the wisest decision. But do you think Big U it just isn't understanding the gravity of what he's facing? Because prosecutors say at maximum he's facing 600 years in prison.
600 years is a very, very long time. And I think that, the federal system is very complex and it's not like state system. I don't know if he served any federal time before or if he has any experience with federal time, but that system is very unique and it's not like most state systems. So things that you may be able to get away with on local state levels, you're not going to be able to get away with it on the federal level.
Yeah, and that is just an understatement right there. And what are your thoughts also, I just have to know, about Big U wanting help from the president himself? Now, he referred to him, according to these court documents, as the Orange Man on a federal jail line. But do you think that he's just a little bit delusional in thinking that President Trump is going to step in on his RICO case, extortion case, murder case, as he refers to him as the Orange Man?
People in very hot places want ice water as well. So that's very wishful thinking on his end. But I think that in terms of this administration, the president and the Department of Justice have been very clear in outlining what their goals are in tackling organized crime, and it's something that they're taking very seriously.
Are you surprised Big U has been so open on these jailhouse lines, given everything that he's facing, but also knowing that the government is going to be listening to him? Why do you think that he just is so open and just so brazen about trying to manipulate the president of the United States?
I have no idea. At the very beginning of those calls, there's a auto prompt that lets the caller and both the calling party and the receiving party on the call know that these calls are being recorded and monitored. And surely he would know, after speaking with his attorney, that federal government is going to be interested in listening to his phone call. So I'm kind of drawing a blank on that one. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. That's, again, another understatement when it comes to this entire case. And, last time we had spoken about Big U's case in particular, we were talking about just how open he's also been in podcast interviews and interviews for documentaries, all of that sort too. And federal prosecutors point to the interviews that Big U has done where he talks about his OG days. He talks about when he sold drugs and took money from the neighborhood. He talks about when he was in prison before these charges came up, that he used to pay off the guards. Do you think the defense will be able to kind of just chalk this all up to, the defendant was embellishing maybe about the old days and this shouldn't be used against him? What are your thoughts on what the defense will possibly counter to what Big U has said out of his own mouth?
I think that it's very telling because in allegations, you're going to have some people will come forward and say things, and it's going to be very beneficial to those individuals to allege and kind of build up this character of Big U. But when you have the words coming out of his own mouth, I think that is very, very telling, and I think it's very credible, especially if it supports the character that maybe some of the witnesses are building him up to be as well. So it never really plays well on his behalf to have it coming from his own mouth.
Yeah. What do they say? You can't lead or no, that doesn't even make sense. I was gonna say you can't lead a horse to drink water, but the saying about how it's coming out of the horse's mouth. You know where I'm going there. But I remember also when we had first spoke about this case, we spoke specifically also about developing options, the nonprofit Big U founded, and it was supposed to help at-risk youth, and it seemed like the intention was to do good. But as we keep learning more and more and more about these allegations, it seems like Big U didn't really care about the kids, because why would he allegedly steal money to an already underserved community to line it up in his own pockets? Federal prosecutors say he had a Mercedes, he had multiple houses, he spent money on a $30,000 necklace or possibly a chain. What are your thoughts on how lavish that Big U was living, how lavishly he was living while he was supposed to be giving this money to an underserved group of kids? What are your thoughts about that?
It's very sad that individuals that are entrusted to kind of help really understand the struggle from that neighborhood by being from that neighborhood and kind of being the Robin Hood, somebody that's going to speak up on behalf of the people that they are, that they represent, a representative from your own community that is going to advocate on your behalf and talk about the real life issues going on there every day, and the funding that he's receiving to kind of fix some of those issues. He's using it for his own selfish gain. I think that those individuals definitely need to be held accountable. Like it's almost victimizing the community twice.
Yeah, and it's just horrible too. And it's not even just the kids he's accused of taking money from. It's his celebrity pals. It's people like Shaq. It's people like Draymond Green. So it's like he stole from the rich. He also stole from the poor, allegedly. And when it comes to the extortion allegations, Big U is also accused of pretty much paying people to beat up others for disrespecting him or not giving him essentially what he wants. He's accused of pretty much sending goons to beat up people like business owners or people who tell him no because they wouldn't pay him. What are your thoughts on just this picture the federal government is painting of Big U as being kind of this menacing but also murderous bully while he was pretty much out of prison, as opposed to kind of the persona that Big U tried to portray where he was, the OG turned good activist? What are your thoughts on just that double life he was living?
I think that both sides of that picture match up very well in terms of the allegations. I don't think that the federal prosecutors came up with these allegations on their own. I don't think that it was something they just woke up one day and just said, we're going to go after this guy. It had to come from someone. And typically in these investigations, there's outcries or complaints that start the investigation and get the ball rolling. And sometimes these cases take a while to develop because, these people or characters and defendants are sometimes involved in a whole lot of stuff. So it takes time to kind of build up your witness base. But it would be very easy to go and talk to some of the individuals that they allege that he's been extorting, see if they'd be willing to participate or willing to provide information and maybe backstory on it.
Yeah, and just even the thought of him extorting people, not just for like $100 or something like that. It's like tens of thousands of dollars. It's a lot of money to be allegedly extorting from others, especially within your own community. In your opinion, though, was it the right decision for the judge to keep Big U remanded to custody pending trial?
I definitely think it was the right decision. That's a powerful tool that the federal government has, that someone could be arrested on charges and not make it back out to the streets until after their sentence is over with. And it sends a powerful message to the neighborhood and to the community that maybe on the streets you're Big U, but inside this facility and inside the federal government, you're just another defendant. And that, that it's over with. And I think it sends a message to the neighborhood that, um, the federal government's not going to stand for these type of activities.
And it seems like the federal government also just has an overwhelming amount of evidence against Big U. They have wiretaps, they have witness statements, they have victim statements, they have surveillance video, they have money trails. It just seems like a lot of evidence. What do you make of just this overwhelming amount of evidence, given that this investigation did take years?
Well, a rule of thumb is that federal prosecutors typically don't take investigations or cases that they don't think that they can win. Typically, most of their cases are resolved without even going to the courtroom. So for them to come forward and for them to also, speak on this case, the prosecutor was speaking with a lot of conviction on this case when he was describing all the criminal acts that they alleged Big U committed. I would believe, without seeing the evidence, that they would have a ton of evidence against him, and that the facts on this case are pretty strong. And I think also, by the fact that he's still continuing some of these activities while he's locked up, it just makes their case even stronger.
It seems like literally it was the indictment, the brief, all these court documents seem like they were taken from a Hollywood script. Like I kind of think of, the TV shows like Power, where it's just like Big U kind of was ghost in this scenario. And it seems like, but this here is real life. And Big U faces a lot of time in prison. And he pleaded not guilty to his charges. He claims he's innocent. But, do you really think that he's really going to risk rolling the dice and go to trial?
It would be very interesting to see. Some of the things that he's done so far has kind of surprised me. The phone call that he made and FaceTime that he put out on his way to turning himself in. Also, continuing to having these conversations, even though jail calls are recorded, and also individuals inside these facilities are looking for any reason to try to lessen their sentence. So this is a prime opportunity with someone on a case that's getting this much traction to be able to provide inside information to prosecutors to help them out. I mean, he's done a lot of uncharacteristic things that I wouldn't think that he would have done at this point. So I mean, who knows?
And it seems like federal prosecutors are ready to go for trial. Literally, when I was checking the court website, it says that his jury trial is scheduled for May 20th of this year. So that means that's in just a couple of weeks. That's what's on the schedule for right now, pending that it might change. But do you think that the trial will actually happen on May 20th? Or do you think it's possible the defense will need more time and maybe push the trial down maybe a couple weeks, a couple months, maybe even next year?
I think that it's going to get pushed out. The prosecutors typically like to put a date on the calendar just to show that if the defendant wants a speedy trial, they're ready to go. But I think that in terms of his own counsel being prepared to prevent any type of appellate action for ineffective counsel, they're going to need more time to go through this. Years worth of investigation is going to take a long time for them to kind of comb through and look at the small details and try to find something that they can pick apart. So I think this is just more of a preliminary date on the calendar. I think that it's going to extend out probably until next year.
Yeah, and again, it's just a lot of allegations. I think it was 43 counts against him. It's just a lot. So I'd be very stunned if it actually does go on trial next month, but I could see them pushing it to a later date as well too. Detective Eric Barnes, I always want to thank you so much for your time today. Before we sign you off though, what do you think is going to happen next for Big U?
This is like the story that just keeps on giving. There are more things coming out on this case. I think that as the case progresses and as time kind of goes on, I think you're going to get more people that come forward with information. I think that when a person is involved in an investigation like this, your strength of the case or the strength of who you are in the neighborhood is based on the kind of network that you have around you. And so now with federal investigation looming, the main target is in custody. federal authorities are going out, they're knocking on more doors, they're talking to more people, passing out more cards. So I think you're going to have more people calling in and wanting to clear their name. And what that typically turns into is them pointing a finger at Big U.
And I could see more and more stuff, more and more details coming out in the near future, and we'll be here to get your take from it as well next time. Thank you, Eric, or thank you, Detective Barnes. I appreciate your time today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Big U's next court appearance is scheduled for May 9th, and his trial is on the calendars for May 20th. And again, if he's convicted, he faces hundreds of years in prison. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.